All right, more dominance from SVG again. Are people sounding too many alarms about seeing greatness in front of them? Kind of reminds me of a few other drivers. We'll talk about that from Watkins Glen. Connor Zilich's scary injury and what a potential timeline could be for him to return. It may not be very long, and he's back in the car. Austin Hill from Winston, Georgia strikes again. We'll go over that. Some more truck silly season news, and we'll preview Devin's trip to Richmond, all here on the 5 to Go podcast. And it is episode 326 here of the 5 to Go podcast. GoPRN.com has them. For sure you got on Apple, Spotify, and our new YouTube channel where you can watch me mean mug the camera with my fake spiky hair. Doug Fireball Turnbull, co-creator of this thing, co-host of the show from the Performance Racing Network. I'm glad to be with you, and I'm also the Gridlock Guy columnist for Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and I'm with the traffic team with Rachel Cox-Rosen on 11 Alive News here in Atlanta. Would love for y'all to tune in for that if you're in the metro area, and we're so glad you're tuning into this. Big weekend in Watkins Glen. Mainly, there's a lot of negativity coming out of there, and honestly, I'm getting a little sick of that. All right, we'll talk about that a little later in the show. But jumping on the line here, first off, he's decked out, and is it UNG blue or Culver's blue? We may never know. Oh, yes, we do know. He is our roving racing journo, UNG, the University of North Georgia graduate, and he's our super racing fanalist. Devin Kupka got his ears lowered. How you doing, bud? Oh, you're muted.
Oops, forgot to unmute myself. I'm doing well. Just kind of sandwiched in the middle of a busy week. I worked part of the weekend, had Sunday off to catch the Cup race at Watkins Glen, and then I travel up tomorrow to go up to Richmond Raceway for the Truck Series race and the Cup Series race this weekend.
That's right. No Xfinity, so it's a Truck and Cup Series double feature there. ARCA is going to be out in Illinois, and we got to talk about big-time feat in ARCA here that happened this past Friday, too. So, Dev, are you revved up and excited for the trip first time, right?
I am. Hopefully Culver's doesn't have an issue with it because it's the Cookout 400.
Oh, well, you didn't have to mention that. You were always very studious about mentioning the sponsors of these races, and I think that's good. They pay the money. You mentioned even the little sponsors, the Cookout 400 presented by Tampax or whatever it is. So, I mean, isn't that it? I don't know. So, I mean, yeah, you're good about that. You don't have to say it ever again, though. You don't have to make any graphics. It's okay, but also Culver's
it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things.
You're also right. That's correct. There you go. Title of the show, doesn't matter in the grand scheme. Listen everywhere, respond right here. Also joining us on the line. That is not a Dawson's Creek T-shirt, ladies and gentlemen. That's Dawson Cruisers, because he is the master maker of speed at Dawsonville, grinding those gears. 2018 Georgia Racing Hall of Fame inductee, and he keeps us straight. And that's Dan Elliott. How you doing, bud?
I keep straight, but I'm glad we went to a road course, even though people were not happy about it. Still glad we went to a road course because, all being said, I love Watkins Glen. I love the history of the track, and I love to see the cars compete there. And thought it was an interesting weekend.
Definitely an interesting weekend on and off the track, or a lot of off-track news that was quite interesting there. So we'll have to get into it. And look, hard to believe that at the site of his first win in 2018, Chase Elliott scored his first non-top 20 of the 2025 season. He had a long streak of top 20s that began last year and went deep into the summer. This year it ends at race number, was it 23? They've had 24 races. So he had 23 straight top 20 finishes, and nobody goes around bragging about that, but it shows how consistent William Clyde II has been there. He also has the second most points of the Cup Series behind another Chase in the form of Briscoe in the Cup Series in the last 10 races. But we're not talking about top 10s, top 20s. We're not even talking about points per se. He won by 11 seconds using a Stephen Moran-led, crew chief-led strategy, and AI, I'm sure, strategy of having the newest tires, the latest, and Shane Van Gisbergen. He gets his fourth Cup win of the year. So here we go. We may have teased this up last week. Fourth Cup win of the year. He breaks Tony Stewart and Jimmy Johnson's rookie wins record, set in 99 and 2002, respectively. He now has 4 wins. They each had 3. He is now the third most playoff points of the Cup Series at 22 playoff points. That's to Denny Hamlin's 24, Kyle Larson's 23 playoff points. And Denny Hamlin is the only other driver with the same number of wins as SVG, and that is 4. Larson and a couple others like Christopher Bell have 3. He's, with all that said, in the classic point standings, Devin Kupka, he is 25th And there is something that's going on this summer with these races that don't have a lot of color in them right now. Even though we're seeing greatness in front of us, we're also seeing this real dichotomy between the stat sheet actually and the playoff sheet actually, and it seems to be turning the heat up about the playoff discussion, even though it seems very likely that nothing will change with the playoffs going into next season, just because we've gotten so late and nobody can agree on it. So I want you to just give me maybe your biggest headline out of the race, Devin, your biggest takes from Sunday.
Yeah, it was just another race that SVG dominated, and really credit to him for being able to come over to NASCAR and a completely new series. Go to these tracks sometimes for the first time ever. Watkins Glen wasn't one of those cases, but to just see him go out and dominate another road course race is a feat that has been tough to do really throughout racing. I mean, you have certain different tracks like in NASCAR, short tracks, road courses, street courses, and the intermediate and the super speedway tracks. But for him to be able to go out, dominate another road course race, pick up his 4th win of the season. Let's not forget here that he has 4 wins on the season. That is as much as Denny Hamlin has this year as well. I know it's not on the intermediates, but you still cannot discount that he has 4 wins on the season.
No, the 4 wins, no matter how you shake it, and it's not like they're stolen wins that he only stretched fuel mileage. In fact, he probably could have won even more resoundingly if not for maybe, as I've heard other observers say, he toyed with the field a little bit, saved the tires, still led the most laps by 3. He didn't win either of the stages. We've seen him do that where, was it Sonoma, where he pitted and still won the stage or finished right behind Kyle Larson, something like that. I mean, it's crazy the amount of dominance, but also we're seeing greatness right in front of us. Now, we had a whole episode called Let's Pump the Brakes on the GOAT talk after I think his 3rd win, because it's like, okay, are we going to live as prisoner of the moment? But we're seeing here somebody that's done 4 of them in a row as far as road courses go. And it feels like the Jeff Gordon run of the late 90s. And Martin had a stretch where they were only running 2 road course races a year and they dominated. It feels like Darrell Waltrip at Bristol. It feels like Jimmy Johnson at Dover and Martinsville at one point, and Denny Hamlin at Martinsville. But it's hard to – I don't want to be a prisoner of the moment, okay? So that being said, Dan, what do you think? I mean, you had – I mean, the clip of the show I used – to put on social media was you saying, I don't want this race to come down to strategy. Let these guys race it out. I don't want it to be an AI calculated yada, yada. And I put something in the group chat when they started talking about AI on the broadcast. So, Dan, how do we feel after Sunday?
I think that AI is not in the strategy of the crew chief or the team itself as much as I think SVG is probably AI himself. Somebody needs to peel the skin back and see if SVG is AI. That would answer the questions for a lot of these people. But no, I love the comment that he made during the race was when they try to slow him up or try to do something different, he comes back and says, let me run my race, let me hit my marks, let me run the car. I love that because that is the driver being the driver. Take everything out of the equation, but you've got to understand that race was no one fell out of the race. All the pit stops, all the pit crew did their job. The car did its job, the motor did its job, and the driver did its job. And I think at the end of the day, this is what we're looking for. And the people that I see, most of the people that are complaining about SVG are the ones that are finishing 2nd or 3rd, or ones that have been dominant on the road courses before and now have problems getting it done against SVG.
Well, and look, we're going to look back on this and be like, man, just like we do now with Jimmy Johnson, man. In the moment, people are angry because they're not seeing something random. But I also think if they saw something totally random, if John Hunter Nemechek had done some weird strategy with his crew chief Travis Mack and won this race, they would have been like Harrison Burton at Daytona. Oh, wait. Austin Dillon does what he does at Richmond. That wasn't predictable at all, by the way. This ain't racing. And I just feel like the negativity level, and I understand why it's there. It is hard. Passing is hard in this car. But you're discounting the fact that the guy's whooping their butts, and I'm sorry, I'm okay with that. Go get him. Hendrick Motorsports and your tens of millions of dollars. Go get him. You're bigger than Trackhouse. Penske, You had the Mark Donahue car way back when, if I remember correctly, right? They fielded that way back when Mark Donahue's compared to what SVG is now. Go get them. And Trackhouse has really had a very uneven season. So this is their way to kind of have their comeuppance, right? Is
And make
own on the
no
road
mistake,
course.
there will be somebody that'll come along that will go get them. That's
Yeah.
a given.
That's correct. I wonder if this does with teams and driver development. Now they're going to try to copy that Trackhouse model because there are 6 road course races a year. There may be only 5 next year in 2026, but nonetheless, you can't do that with super speedway races because they're too random at the end. There are enough good short track racers. You couldn't take whoever out of the Cars Tour and drop them in the Cup Series. He is going to win Martinsville because there are too many good. But road courses, and I didn't think this was possible. I thought that if you took SVG, you would put him in a small group of elite Cup Series road course racers. And as it stands right now, he is his own class. I was not expecting that. Just like I wasn't expecting 2 years ago, some guys, is he related to Allen Ginsberg? What is his name? And he wins in his first Cup start, and here he is running circles around him. God bless. We're seeing it in front of our eyes. I want the car to race better.
Run circles and like he runs road courses.
No doubt.
He just picked up his first oval win a few weeks ago at Charlotte Motor Speedway. He raced in a Legends race that he's been doing like a summer series, and he won the last race of the season.
I think Kyle Busch won 4 of those this year. So much for the Cup drivers staying out of the smaller ranks, huh?
Yeah, so much.
That's interesting that he won. But good for him going out there and running with the kids in the summer shootout, right? I mean, you got to get your reps. It's on
a small oval, but it's still an oval win regardless.
And I think that would be a race from hell if they had raced Legends cars on the big oval. So yeah, thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, the Legends run on the quarter mile just like they do at Atlanta or Echo Park Speedway.
I saw somebody at Costco today with an Echo Park Speedway shirt.
Hey, there you go. All right. We're getting all the plugs here. All right. So Culver's, Cookout, Costco. Come on. Respond right here. fireballturnbull@gmail.com. Let's get it going. Okay. Hey, here are the top 10 in this race. Shane Van Gisbergen, 11-second win. I didn't see that coming. I went to church when he was leading before his last pit stop, and my friend Taylor, she texted me, what is going on? It was like a 15-second lead because he hadn't made a stop yet. I said, look, best driver, best tires, best car, but he still has to make one more pit stop. It'll be at least closer. And it was actually only 4 seconds closer. That's crazy. Christopher Bell finished second there. He's been persona non grata this summer. Chris Buescher pads his bubble on the playoffs, and he finishes third there. He gets 11 more points than his teammate Ryan Preece, who finished 13th, to help his playoff chances. Buescher, the winner at Watkins Glen a year ago. The Iowa winner, in honor of Devin's grandfather, William Byron, finished fourth. Chase Briscoe has been on a heater lately, especially in qualifying day, and he finishes fifth. Ryan Blaney won the pole, led 35 laps, finished sixth. Daniel Suarez notches his first top 10 since May and finishes seventh, with Bubba Wallace in the top 10 on the road course. He'll take it in eighth. Ninth going to his teammate Tyler Reddick, and Ross Chastain, teammate of the winner, finishing in 10th. Far as the playoff first off, regular season point standings, it looked like Elliott was going to really give it to Byron there. Elliott, and I don't know what happened. Did y'all catch what happened on Chase's last pit stop? Or second to last time, he came out like 37th or something. It was weird. It had a long stop, but they didn't say why on TV, and I don't have the stats to look at the length of each pit stop, but he lost ground. He was a fringe top 20 car that fell well outside the top 20 then. He finished 26th, I believe. He is now second in points, 42 behind his teammate Byron for the regular season points lead, which gets you 15 playoff points. You finish second in the standings, it's only 10 playoff points. So that's a 5 playoff point difference there, being 42 regular season markers behind. Denny Hamlin moves up a spot to third in the standings. He's 4 points ahead of Christopher Bell, who is tied with Kyle Larson in the points. Larson crashed out earlier. Had the mechanical issue early, right? Did he hit the shoot? What was it? It was brakes. Was it brakes?
Yeah, he had brake issues.
Who had issues early in Chicago street race? William Byron. They had some stuff they didn't change in the engine there. Yeah, you got to think Hendrick maybe messing around a little something there, getting ready for the Roval and something else in the playoffs. So Larson, terrible finish, 5th in points. Ryan Blaney's up to 6, 102 points out. And then on the playoff bubble, which they now have a playoff picture tab on NASCAR.com. Amazing it took that long to add that. But Chris Buescher is 34 points to the good over Ryan Preece. Kyle Busch is the second driver out on points, 102 points back. So Busch, Gibbs, Allmendinger, Keselowski, Hocevar, must-win territory with Richmond and Daytona coming up. Of course, you could throw it all away at Daytona. Buescher with a 34-point lead over Preece. Alex Bowman plus 60. Tyler Reddick, the highest-ranked points drivers with no wins, 117 to the good, who's not technically assured of a bye into the playoffs, but pretty close to that. So anything about the playoffs, just looking ahead of these two races, guys, that makes you nervous or anxious? I mean, do we think we're going to see a random winner at Daytona or even Richmond like Dylan last year?
I think you see a potential random winner at Daytona, but I don't think you'll see a random winner at Richmond this weekend.
Don't think Kyle Busch is going to go clear out 2 cars in the last turn at Richmond, Devin?
I don't know, but Austin Hill might, though.
Well, if he enters the Cup race, yes. Yeah, he might just do it for kicks, or for as my friend said the other day, gets and shiggles. So
Yeah.
no cussing. It was gets and shiggles.
No
okay. Dan, do you see any special winner there? Do you think one of our regulars is going to go put it to him at Daytona and Richmond?
I'd love to see a non-winner. I really would. I'd love to see a non-winner, and not from the fact of the big one or the little one or the one that got away, but I just love to see the competition be to where that we don't get into the fuel deal, into the other deals, and we just have a competitive race, a lot of pacing, a lot of mixing up, and a different winner for this race coming up at Daytona. But we got racing to go before that. So
for sure, and Chris Buescher would be the driver out if that were to happen. What if Keselowski wins Daytona, knocks Buescher out? What if Preece wins and knocks Buescher out? Or in any of those scenarios, that would be wild there. And of course, a lot of capable drivers could do it. Remember, it was Harrison Burton a year ago, and remember, it was Austin Dillon who had Richmond won on merit, on speed, and then they had the late caution between Stenhouse and Preece. Dillon had a bad restart, but then charged back and took out Hamlin and Logano in the last turns there, and they took away his playoff eligibility there and fined him a bunch of points, which still not sure about, but it is what it is. So, all right, the rest of the weekend went like this. Friday afternoon, I forgot the race was on. I said it here on 5 to Go. It's going to be like a 2 p.m. race on Friday. Forgot that ARCA was on then. I was half awake. Tristan McKee, who was not even born when I went to the Daytona 500 and saw Jamie McMurray win in 2010. He was born in August of 2010. He has just turned 15, and when Brent Cruz, the hot young Toyota prospect, had mechanical issues, McKee wins the ARCA race at Watkins Glen. Now, Dan, you felt cooked for a long time, so I want to come to Devin first. Devin, when you hear that there is an ARCA regional series race winner born when you were 8 years old, how do you feel?
I don't know. I felt okay a few years ago when we were talking about Ty Gibbs and how I'm only like 6 months older than him in 2002. So
Yeah.
I was cool with that. But now that there's a driver in the 2010s, not anywhere in the 2000s, actually going out and winning big races like in the ARCA series, it's just kind of I'm getting old. I'm almost 24. Well, I'll be 24 next year. But
what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? You're so old. You're so cooked. Hey, Dan, do you recall the first time you saw drivers winning on the national level and you thought, oh my God, I'm old? It happened with me with probably like the Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney era. But what was it for you?
I thought we were old when we first started running in NASCAR.
Okay.
And that was in the 70s. So
you thought you were old in the 70s?
I do feel old today, but yeah, when it comes to the things that I thought I could do and I watched other people do and realized that I had difficulty doing that at a young age, I was already in trouble. But I guess nobody told me I couldn't do it. But anyway, you go out and do it anyway. But you're right. I think it was at Gresham the first time I realized that the youth coming in and how young they started their careers. Because I was going to ask, does anybody know how young SVG was when he first got into any form of race car?
Any form of race car?
Any
I mean,
form.
he's 36 now and was winning for a long time at V8 Supercars. God,
Okay, but his career, did it start in quarter midget? Did it start in the backyard on motorcycles at two? It's just the opportunity now to be able, because as my wife and I have discussed, is how young now can you be to start racing, and it just depends on what you're stepping into, whether it be
yeah.
quarter midget, so forth. You can probably get in at 4 years old, probably 4.5 years old, and
It
then you can probably get into late models as young as, and I'm talking about late model short track, as young as probably 10 or
12.
12
Yeah.
years old, probably.
Look, Brexton Bush is 10 years old.
Yeah, 10
And
years
is
old.
and I
And he
think
already
he's
has a
been in a
career.
late model. I think he's been in a late model. He's been close to it anyway. And of course,
Yeah.
Keelan Harvick is now racing against his dad in Cars Tour Pro Late Model races. On Wikipedia, and I generally trust when I see a Wikipedia. Sometimes it could be off. It says Van Gisbergen, so he's 36 now, and I'm not pulling his birthday up, but that means he was born in either 1988 or 1989. And so from 1998, so 9 or 10 years old is when he was racing motocross, quarter midgets, and go-karts from 98 to 2004. And then he joined the New Zealand Formula First Championship in 2004. So when he was a young teenager, all right, so
Okay,
15,
so he
16
was
years old.
already 4 years too late getting started. He could have been racing
4 years too
here.
late.
Yeah, 4 or
Yeah.
5 years younger, and he is racing against drivers that have that much in their career started younger than he was.
He's by the way, 3-time champion in supercars at 36
Yep.
years old, 508 races. 508 races before leaving that series full time after the 2023 season. 80 wins, 3 championships, 176 podiums. And the last full season he was there, he finished second, and that was in his early 30s. It's kind of similar to Joey Logano.
But
Logano
that's
is
late in your
35
career.
years old. Logano's 35 years old, just had his 500th Cup start. It's kind of the same deal.
But he is running late in his career now, because you've got other drivers that have been driving for a long time up to now at the 30s, at the early 40s, and people, it seems like now that they get to their 40s and they're thinking about retirement, or you're ready to put them out to pasture.
For sure. It'll be interesting. I hate that term now because they say it so much, but it'll be interesting to see how late Van Gisbergen goes, just given that he entered the Cup Series age 36 season as a rookie. All right. Rest of the weekend there. Let's go. So Tristan McKee, we talked about winning, just turned 15 years old. My gosh. Corey Heim, who feels like he's been in NASCAR forever and I think is 23 years old. Corey Heim won the truck race. I think he had to survive double overtime. I think it's true also the truck and Xfinity races ran time-wise longer than the 2-hour, 10-minute Cup race because they had a lot of attrition. Xfinity race had a 45-minute red flag. And let's talk about that because Saturday was a crap show and in a couple of different ways. First off, Connor Zilich, after making contact with SVG, his teammate for Junior Motorsports, SVG in a part-time role, Zilich full-time in the number 88. Zilich goes to victory lane. They make contact coming off the track there. Dan, what did you think of that? You have the young buck with his teammate, the old season pro, SVG. They're racing hard. They've made Zilich has had some moments with Ty Gibbs and some others where he's gotten into him in the lead pack. It happened in Mexico. Did you think Zilich could have given some space there to SVG before going on to win that race?
I think this was just competitive, passionate racing, and the fact that it ended up the way that it did. This one, and also too, the Austin Hill wreck, they are similar. They are very similar in what happened, and I don't blame either driver, Austin Hill or Zilich or SVG. Okay. It was just a product, I think, of racing. And I'm going to elaborate on this just a little bit more when we get into the Cup side of Watkins Glen, because there was something I noticed about the pit stop in the Cup race for SVG that I don't know, it wasn't talked about. I haven't heard it talked about, but go on with your thought, and we'll get back to that.
Well, let's since we had left the Cup, let's go back to it there. So before we finish talking about Zilich and also his victory lane injury there, he did end up winning the Xfinity race. But what did you see in the Cup race, Dan? As far as so SVG is, I mean, people just go, he's great, he's great, he's great. But you saw something in the pit stop that turned you which direction, I guess.
I turned it in the direction of, and this is what you're going to have to just bear with me here. It's going to take just a second
That's
to
okay.
explain this. But when you listen to SVG's car as well as Byron's car leave pit road, you know they're leaving pit road in first gear, the lowest gear they've got, because it's hard. That pit road is just a little bit uphill. It's hard to get off pit road anyway.
Okay.
But I noticed that the transmission ratios in first gear was extremely high. They had difficulty getting off of pit road once the jack dropped, because the high gear ratios make it harder for you to either break the tires loose or get going, one or the other. And you need to do that to keep from tearing up equipment. So in that respect, I know that the transmissions in the Xfinity cars is different from the Cup car. Now we're on a transaxle in the Cup cars, 5-speed transaxle, and being able to gear these things for particular parts of the racetrack. You can almost gear this thing in the Cup car to where that you can make efficient use of your gearbox on every part of the speedway, allowing you to be the most efficient and the quickest that you can be. And you have to do this in practice to, and AI and other forms of, even down to the programs that you have, can help you select those ratios to make you better. But my point being is, this gives you the opportunity to be better on certain parts of the racetrack than other cars are, or you end up being better there because, let's face it, with all the turns on these road courses, you can't be the best everywhere. You've got to set up to be the best in zones where you know you can pace, where you can set somebody up and pace. So there's where the advantage is with these transmissions, is you can gear this car to the driver, to the track, to the zones, and give him the opportunity, that little advantage, because you know that when you've got that little advantage, that you've got to pace in that zone, and everywhere else you're going to have to block the driver behind you to keep him from pacing. If he's got a different zone than you have, then you got to keep him back. There sets up the problem that we saw both in Xfinity and in Cup. You've got drivers that are better in one zone than the other, and they have to block in the others. And this is the product of what you get when you've got these two differences. Or the driver may be better in certain zones, the other driver may not, and he's trying to make up for that and makes paces or makes moves that cause some of the racing action that you see. But this is the part I see, is just the fact that you have different scenarios for different drivers, and they're better at one place than the other, and you can't be 100% everywhere on a road course, but you can be 100% in 3 or 4 places, and the other driver may not be 100% in those places, and he's going to try to make up for it.
I think the difference we're seeing with SVG, and maybe I'm wrong, versus what we've seen with other drivers that have triumphed at road courses and have prolonged road course speed, has been, it seems like they're just hitting it so much ahead of everybody everywhere else. And I'm wondering, we talk so much about the driver. He's been the difference. There are 3. In fact, this weekend there was a 4th Trackhouse car, but they withdrew Zilich's number 87 from the Cup race after his spill at Victory Lane.
But the Saturday race showed up more than ever the fact that those cars were almost identical.
Yes.
They were that's almost identical, and I think that SVG held up Zilich in a couple of places, and I think when Zilich got by, he held up SVG in a couple of places, and it balanced out. But you ended up having to block the driver behind you, and once those two cars eliminated once one got eliminated, then it was all over anyway.
Right, and that's where, and that's the thing is. But so people are anticipating, okay, if Connor Zilich indeed ends up in the number 99 Cup car, or if they rebrand it to 87 or whatever happens to replace Suarez, will they go head to head like they did in the Xfinity car? Some would argue, Well, no, because the Cup car's so hard to pass, and or maybe it suits SVG's driving style more, and so he's more dominant there. I don't know. He tore him up in Xfinity last year too. All right, he had what, 3 wins? I think it was three. So he's done it again in back-to-back rookie years in two different cars, two different platforms. And I'm here for it. I mean, I would love to see somebody else like Zilich or somebody that's not his teammate would be even better, so they could just really go claws out on this thing. So on Saturday's race, Connor Zilich, he ends up at victory lane. He has the contact with SVG that takes him out there. He said on Door Bumper Clear, so Zilich was feeling well enough after his spill that we'll talk about in a moment to go and co-host Door Bumper Clear in a sling. He had surgery to put plates in his collarbone and all that. More in a minute. But he said he had an explanation. He goes, look, I was coming off of that. Yes, I should have given him room, sure, but I was expecting a lane to come back on the racetrack, and he didn't give it to me, and here we are. We made contact. Boom, we crash. Well, Zilich survives the wreck. Shane Van Gisbergen taken out. Later on in the race, and Devin, Dan had a strong opinion about this, so I want to get to him first, but I want to hear from you too, Dev. Austin Hill, after serving a one-race suspension for hooking Eric Almirola, NASCAR deemed intentionally in the Brickyard. He misses Iowa. Austin Dillon finishes back of the field with that number 21. Austin Hill comes back in this race. He is the first of two Austin Hills in Saturday's race. And Austin Hill and Michael McDowell, road course ace. McDowell's running the Colleague number 11 in place of Josh Williams. They made contact exiting whichever section it was, but it was one of those where we saw drivers get together. And Hill could have let up. He could have done something different, but he was claws out, and it hooks McDowell, sends him across the track, hard into the wall, 45-minute repair. The wall's torn up. Something like 10, 12 race cars are wrecked. Brian Ellis has a car go into his windshield and cave it in a way I haven't seen happen too many times. And Dan, Austin Hill has very little benefit of the doubt here. What were your thoughts on Austin Hill having that cannonball run, so to speak, in his first race back from punishment?
I think it's just the product of where you're at and what you're doing, because I really don't fault him for where he was at or what he was doing. And he probably expected a lane to open up as well, and it didn't open up either. But this is the product of what you're trying to do as far as the competition and how fierce it is and how bad you want to win. And I look at Austin Hill a lot like I saw Dale Sr. He's about willing to do anything, but I don't think his intention was to turn McDowell and do the damage that was done, because you can't help what happened through the field. But I don't think that was his intention at all. I think he was setting him up to get the run, like I said, better in some places and not in others. And I think he had set him up to make that pace, to make that move. And maybe it was like I've heard other drivers talk about, where they intentionally do a lane or do a certain way that they do their laps, and they intentionally make a move different on laps so that it fakes you out to where you don't make a pace, keeps you from pacing. In other words, it's just a way to block.
Right.
But to stay out in front, you and I both know that as a driver in front, there are places you're going to have to block.
Yeah, and especially in the Cup car where it's so hard to pass. Devin, did you have anything to add on the Austin Hill situation from Saturday?
I think what we saw, I think it's just one of those parts of the racetrack where things just narrow up and they bottleneck. So I think it's just more circumstance than anything intentional from Hill. It just happened that he happened to be involved there and clipped Michael McDowell in that instance. I think it's just the circumstance, really. I didn't think anything. He probably.
I think you'd set him up to Tyson's zone there, and things happened that were not expected, and it was over that quick. So one of those things.
And we've seen some nasty wrecks in that part of the racetrack before, so this isn't like a odd occurrence that there was a wreck there. No. We've seen it before.
But I've heard, so they talked about it at Door Bumper Clear, the Spotters podcast. You have Freddie Kraft, the main spotter on that deal. They've talked about it at Door Bumper Clear. I heard Jeff Gluck and Jordan Bianchi talking about this on the teardown, about there being both a radio dead zone and even a spotter sightline dead zone in that stretch of the racetrack there. And that's concerning to me, especially considering how many cars piled into Saturday's wreck. like with today's technology, with how much money is floating around from TV, and I know there's less money in the sport than there used to be. We shouldn't. And the same thing happened in Chicago, where spotters couldn't see that a car was, whichever car it was at the end of the Cup race, was stuck against the wall for so long. How are we? To me, it just seems unfathomable that you can see every turn that every steering wheel makes on SMT or the NASCAR owned version of SMT, but you can't see whole freaking race cars in a certain spot on the racetrack. I'm not trying to solve it. I'm not the technology guy. I'm ideas guy. Way easier to be that. But how in the world, with all the satellite stuff we have, all the AI, all the everything, are we having blind spots on racetracks?
Okay, well, you explain to me how it's a blind spot, because McDowell was probably looking in his mirror, seeing
Well, I'm not talking.
teeth, and the car is directly behind him to some degree. There is not a zone right there. That is one of the things where you're pretty much you're not nose to tail, but you know that somebody's breathing down your neck.
Yeah.
And you're trying your best to keep him back there, and he's trying his best to pace you.
Yeah.
And I don't know what a spotter could have done at that time other than.
Well, I'm talking about the spotters for the
you.
drivers behind it when the track was blocked and they drove into it and couldn't see and things like that. That's more so than McDowell. But
yeah, but Doug, that is one of the fastest parts of the racetrack. One of, it's not the fastest, but it's one of. And by the time the spotter came on the radio and said, you're in it, and yeah, I'm in it.
Fair. It seemed like the drivers were thinking there could have been more to be done there, but that's fair. That's fair what you're saying.
Zone, that spot, I agree, but that's too narrow of a zone and too fast of a zone to have time to do anything much at all other than tell you, oh, the safety truck is backing down the racetrack. What do I do?
Well, I'm glad that everybody ended up okay in that nonetheless there. And yes, there was another point in Saturday's race, was Saturday, the day of follies for sure, where, Dan, you saw something interesting with a wrecker, right?
No, it was a safety truck.
Safety truck. Okay, yes.
It was a safety truck backing down the speedway as traffic was catching him from the rear going the opposite direction. They were going in the correct direction on the racetrack, and the safety truck was backing down the racetrack in reverse. I guess you had to see his backup lights. I don't know.
Yeah, apparently, yeah. And we were discussing.
I think I saw the same video as well. But so why would they do that under green flag conditions?
Well,
that was a caution flag that had come out there cleaning up debris from a wreck. And I guess the safety truck must have missed something, and they were backing up. But they didn't get off the racetrack to back up.
There's a lot that needs to be tightened up on our Friday and Saturday.
It was kind of like the deal of Doug showing the cars coming up the ramp the wrong way, trying to avoid a traffic jam, and this is just not the thing you do on a racetrack.
No, slow or fast. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. So Saturday's race there was Zilich. They ended up holding off Austin Hill, who, by the way, Zilich said on Door Bumper Clear that Austin Hill got into him and Zilich hit him under caution. The thing that really got under his skin, though, was when Austin Hill hit him and passed him, Hill gave him the deuces going by. It was just Hill, for any and he laid it down. He said, I did not intentionally wreck Eric Almirola. Even 2 weeks later, he completely denied it, that he did it intentionally. But then you hear stories like that, and you're like, okay, like, do we have any sort of humility or at least trying to play the game here? And I mean, I'm glad he does it because it's way more entertaining. But like, are you kidding me? Come on, man. Like, you're hitting guys, giving them the deuces going by. But here's the deal. It reminds me of Dale Sr., Dan. It does. It reminds me of Dale Sr. And it's interesting because his granddaughter, Carson Elledge, who hosts Door Bumper Clear, put an X post out after Saturday's race. No one can convince me to like Austin Hill. And my first thought was, well, he's kind of like your grandpa. I mean, not exactly the same, for sure, but definitely some result. Big old country boy out there, 0 GAF, just going for it. I mean,
hey,
okay. I mean, I don't know. Zilich was the winner Saturday, and then he was followed by Sam Mayer, Sammy Smith, Austin Hill. Austin Hill, okay, Austin Powers Music, and then Carson Quapple ended up fifth there with Justin Allgaier, Austin Green, Christian Eckes, Brandon Jones and Harrison Burton rounding out the top 10. I want to jump to their point standings, too, really fast before we talk about the scary moment for Connor Zilich there at Victory Lane. Connor Zilich has a 7-point lead only over his teammate Justin Allgaier for the regular season points lead. And I didn't know this. Sam Mayer is only 24 points out of their regular season lead, and they have bonuses for winning the point standings, too, going into the playoffs. Zilich has a commanding 36 playoff points this year, 6 wins in the series, and Justin Allgaier's second most playoff points at 23. For the playoff bubble, though, and I got to click that button. Oh, Lord, does it not? Oh, come on, NASCAR. Their playoff bubble thing doesn't work, but it's still Harrison Burton over Jeb Burton by 30 points in the playoff bubble with just a few races left. Their playoffs start just a little bit later than that. All right, now Connor Zilich does his deal, stands up on the door in Victory Lane. The liquid is flying. He's under 21, so not beer for sure. Let's just say water and soda are flying in Victory Lane. Flips the window net over the side of the door, and as soon as that second foot starts to go out, he goes down. And I was listening on MRN when it happened. I didn't see it happen live. So I'm listening on my earbuds. I'm driving back from our friend's house with Momo. And I hear them on MRN go, and there's a problem at Victory Lane. And I thought that SVG had come to confront his teammate and whoop that butt. I was like, yes, all right, let's go. Or maybe somebody else had come and to settle a score. And I'm not trying to make light of what happened, but I thought they're actually fighting in Victory Lane. Incredible. But then the tone changed. And when Chris Wilner, the MRN pit reporter at Victory Lane, had this somber voice, I was like, what happened? You know, and Zilich had fallen down, and the video only got shown once or twice on TV, and they didn't show it again, but it's online. And basically looks like, Devin, that he hit almost head first to the ground. We learned later he breaks his collarbone. Zilich was at the Cup race Sunday. He was supposed to be in it, but he stayed for it and did an interview on TV about it. Said he broke his collarbone. His head scans came back negative. But, Devin, what did you think of the moment? I know you were texting us about it. And what do you think now, a few days later?
Well, I was at work, and I got wind of it from some friends that texted me about it. But I thought one of the scariest things was right after he fell, and they caught it on TV. He put his hands up, and I don't know if you've ever seen Miami Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa ever fall down or get hit really hard and actually hit hard enough that it caused a concussion. I think you probably see maybe the pictures of him. His fingers are all kind of weird. At first, I thought I saw that from Zilich, and I was like, that's not good.
I didn't see that.
Seeing the fingers go like this.
I just saw him limp on the ground. You're saying you saw his hands contort.
I thought I had seen it, but it wasn't. Maybe he didn't hit head hard enough for him to do that. But that's normally a sign of a concussion. But yeah, it's unfortunate that he got injured. You know, celebrating the victory there at Watkins Glen. But the thing about it though is these injuries, and the first thing that came to my mind, because he's a prominent young driver that's won in multiple different racing series, not just in stock cars, but we've seen him win in IMSA and all that. But the thing about these injuries, take a look at Alex Bowman. He got injured a couple of years ago, dirt racing. Performance-wise, he hasn't been anything super phenomenal. He's only had one win since he got injured. And now
was he ever super phenomenal before that, though?
Not necessarily, but he was winning a little bit more consistently.
A little bit more.
Not anything like burning the world down or anything like that. But look at Chase Elliott after his injury. It took him a long time to recover from that. Jimmy Johnson, Pocono hit in 2017, the week after he won his last NASCAR Cup Series race at Dover. Smacks the wall hard, and I believe practice at Pocono wasn't the same after that hit. Didn't win one race. Now, I don't know if that correlated necessarily, but I just look at some of these driver injuries, while even though they could be minor injuries in the grand scheme of things, just kind of look at how they affected their racing and their performance afterwards.
Yeah, it's something worth considering. I don't want to go too definitively on that route, but I see what you're saying is you never know what could change the whole course of time. We see anybody like this get hurt, it doesn't matter if it's 35th place or if it's a legendary talent. You don't want to see it, but gosh, when you do see it, you wonder, oh my gosh, will they be able to do it again? And there was a moment there before we'd heard anything about when he just got hauled off to the hospital. You're like, oh my gosh, like, is he going to race again? You go from that all the way. We saw Ryan Newman. We thought he was dead at Daytona in 2020, and he was racing 3 weeks later, and he wasn't. He was already in a downward sliding cup, so it's hard to compare. But you just never know with this stuff. Dan, what did you think about this whole situation from what you saw at the beginning all the way to the results we know now?
I really thought in the beginning, like Devin, that he was really hurt,
Yeah.
And the collarbone's bad enough because I look at this as being, I'm not sure this injury will be one that will be to the liking of Bowman or Chase. I think it's going to be one to where that maybe you're looking at some kind of support that goes across where that you tighten your belts, and more of that pressure of the belts is supported across the full length of the shoulder. But to me, the scariest part of this, the most dangerous part of this is, let's go to Daytona and have a bad wreck at Daytona, because that's something that you don't want to have. I don't care if it's Richmond. I don't care where it's at, because you have a plate and screws, and you go and have another injury on top of that one, and it would be devastating, and that's what we do not want to see.
No, we absolutely do not want to see that. And that's, again, we're glad. We pray for his healing there. And with the Xfinity Series off for a week, they seem to be leaning toward, they think that he could just not miss a race. And he pointed to an injury that SVG had in V8 supercars, I think to his collarbone, but some other bone break where he got plates and screws and whatnot put in and didn't miss any time. And so, I mean, he also is only 19. They took him out cautiously when he probably could have raced at Texas with that back injury after Talladega. So it's like, which one, what's it going to be, guys? You know, is it going to be cautious or not? Now with the regular season points title on the line, do they keep him in? If it was a head injury, they probably don't. With a collarbone, maybe you do, because there's less permanent stuff damage you could do. I don't know. That's just speculative. I don't know.
In your career, how many times have you seen a driver have this where they got up on the race car and either fell off the race car or fell getting up on top of the race car? How many times have you seen this in your career?
Not many, if ever.
I've seen it numerous times, not only at cup races where it might have been other series that ran on the same weekend, but especially short track where you've had a deal where there might have been a little bit of rain, liquid involved, like you said, the soda was poured, so you get up on the car, and you keep in mind you've been sitting in that car for 2, 3, 4 hours.
You're rickety, and stiff.
And even as young as he is, the old body is still a little bit stiff, and you get up and start doing this, and this is what you're going to get into. And the question becomes to me is, will NASCAR, do you think it was enough to warrant a safety change, or are they going to let them allow to do what Carl Edwards did and just do the backflip off the side of the car?
NASCAR did make mention this week. There's an article up on J-Ski. I think it was Mike Ford that said it on their Inside the Hauler podcast, that they are not looking at making any changes. And I don't need them to make any more rules. All right. But Connor Zilich said that another driver told him, that he did not want to name, that they have in their contract they're not allowed to stand on the side of the car. All right. So I think the change, if it happens, will come from within, and it'll be driver to driver, team to team. But after you saw prized prospect Connor Zilich fall off the side of his car, at very least, now NASCAR did say they're going to try to make sure that the window net is on the inside of the car when the drivers get out. That was the big mistake there.
Something else I'd heard over the weekend, not of that same line, but of the line of the fact that the drivers do the burnouts and melt the cars down on the front straightaway. That was another thing that some of the fans aren't exactly happy about. Some are, some aren't. I noticed comments on that. And
you mean because of the safety factor, or because they're getting tire rubber in their nostrils, or because they're hurting their race cars? Why are people upset about a burnout?
A burnout would be the debris slinging everywhere, tearing the car up, and so forth. And it was more the fact that it was probably something that the owners were probably going to say something about, but they can police that inside their own organization.
Dale Inman said that doing a burnout, I've heard him quoted as saying, doing a burnout with your race-winning car is like winning the Kentucky Derby and going and beating your horse up afterwards. And that changed my perspective on burnouts. I love watching him, but I'm like, if I was ever a driver, I don't know that I would do burnouts. Or I would just do a quick loop or something.
I'm a crew member standing on the wall doing the high five as he goes by and a tire comes apart. I'm going to draw back. I'm going to draw back a nub. I'm not going to have an arm left because it's going to be laying on the racetrack.
Yeah, that's a great point. And that was I think it was Sonoma where SVG did that. He smoked right next to the wall. That was incredible. That takes as much driving talent as winning a race, doing what he did right there. And yet it's so dangerous if one thing goes wrong. Kyle Larson had that celebration where he put his steer wheel out the window while he was doing the burnout, and NASCAR put an end to that. Devin, you were trying to say something a moment ago. Sorry.
An alternative, I guess, way in victory lane that they could do things is to be able to stand on the door of the car at least. There was a time, I think around 2001, where NASCAR had PVC in victory lane. They'd put it, it's kind of like a rail. They'd put it on top of they'd have two NASCAR officials hold it. I had to find video of it because I saw it the other day.
Okay.
They held it above the window where the driver window is. And when the driver, I think it might have been Ricky Craven, it was a Martinsville race or something like that. But basically, the driver could climb on that, and then they could celebrate the victory that way, standing on the door. Now, the reason they did that at the time was because NASCAR was having issues with a lot of these winners standing on top of the car and then potentially denting and then having, weird.
They also
that's what I'd have to have for the senior challenge.
There you go. Put Dan in the senior challenge, okay? Respond right here. Hey, wait. So the other thing that NASCAR used to do at Victory Lane in like the 04, 05 era is it was Gatorade Victory Lane, but the Hendrick drivers were sponsored by Powerade, and they were taking big cardboard Powerade things and sticking it on top of the Gatorade thing on top of the car that NASCAR was putting. Or it was vice versa. I think it was whichever. You know what I'm saying, right? It's it's a NASCAR band, other spots or elements being added to the top of the cars at Victory Lane or something like that. But it's just more rules. I don't need more rules. We saw what happened. We could do better, but it was also a freak accident too. All right. I mean, it was preventable, but it was a freak accident there. We're glad Connor Zilich is the injury was contained to his collarbone, and we hope that he could continue on and be a contender for the championship. Him versus Allgaier for the championship. Teammates, best in series all year. I'm here for it with Sam Mayer and Austin Hill as dark horses. Let's go. Hey, on the Truck Series side, and we're going to talk about their silly season last, actually, to end the show. Richmond preview. It's trucks. It's Cup. It's Richmond. Devin's going to be there. A lot of exclusive content on the 5 to Go podcast, Facebook page, and our YouTube channel. A lot of great short videos, one-on-ones with drivers, their instant reaction when they get out of the race vehicles. And the trucks, this is their playoff cutoff race. We still haven't figured out how to line up all the playoffs, have we? We have Ben Rhodes, minus 11 points to Jake Garcia, his teammate at Thorsport. Jake Garcia from Monroe, Georgia, by the way. And then Gio Ruggiero is 10 points behind Rhodes. And then after that, you're in must-win territory for your Tanner Gray, Connor Mozak, Matt Crafton, and Andres Perez de Lara, who we'll get to in a moment. The driver that's second to last on point, there are 4 drivers that are going to make the truck playoffs on points unless we get a new winner. The third of those is Caden Honeycutt. He was in the 0-2 for Young's Motorsports this past week. I didn't even catch where he finished at the Glen, but that was just a stopgap. He's now going to step into the 52 of Stuart Friesen and drive for that Toyota the rest of the year and then move on to Toyota. They're believing to be at Tricon Garage next season, though that's been unannounced. Now, but you basically got Rhodes and Garcia and Ruggiero going for the final playoff spot there. It is Richmond. It's trucks. It's going to be long and drawn out. I think it's going to be hard to make up those playoff spots without some nifty strategy there in that race. Devin, you're nodding your head. How close are you going to follow the playoff bubble in trucks there when they fire off, I believe, Friday night?
I think what we're going to see from the truck race might potentially be the best race of the weekend at Richmond Raceway.
Okay.
The Euro 250 from Richmond Raceway. So it should be a good one that I get to catch the truck regular season finale and the Cup Series regular season finale next week as well. But
I think Cup regular season finale will be the following week at Daytona. So you are going to Daytona for sure. Mm-hmm. Grandstands or media? What'd you decide?
Leaning, I'd say probably 90% grandstands.
There you go, my man. Go to the grandstands. There you go. But, okay, back-to-back playoff cutoff races for Devin there, and he's predicted trucks will be big there. at Richmond. So that's coming up. Let's get you the weekend schedule real fast. Then we'll talk about truck silly season a little bit before we wrap this thing on up. Okay. All right. So the cup. I'm going to go backwards here. Cup race goes green 7:35 on Saturday night. The 400, and they practice and qualify Friday from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. That's on True TV. The Cup race is on USA, and it's also radio, MRN, and Sirius XM Channel 90. For the trucks, they are 7:30 Friday night, and that will be on FS1. All right, and then their qualifying and such is earlier in the day. So Friday, Saturday, it means the industry, Dan, much like we had at Echo Park Speedway over a month ago, gets a Sunday off. Does that feel like an off week, Dan, even though they had to bust it and come up there a day early? Does it feel like an off week when you have a Sunday off, Dan?
No, it really don't, because you're trying to recover from the. I know all the races that we did on a Saturday night deal was they were usually a good ways from home. You drove home that night, and it took you the next day to just function to get to go to work on Monday.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, it's nice to have that breather, even though you start the work week, even though the previous one is compressed. I like, even as a fan,
you've got a breather.
Man, that's tough. Well,
Yep.
and it would be nice, of course, trucks and Xfinity, or trucks especially, Xfinity too, have some more off weeks. It'd be nice to see that built in the Cup schedule somehow, even if they started the season earlier and ended later. I don't know. I just feel like they need some more breathers, but you also like to have a nice winter break too. That's the same debate we have.
Did I hear right on this? Did the trucks have the fastest lap time at Watkins Glen, and Xfinity was second, and Cup was the slowest lap times of the weekend?
I don't even know how that's possible. Yeah, Devin's not, and I didn't look it up, but Devin,
I saw some pictures.
Yep.
What? I mean, I thought the Cup car was supposed to be all fast on road courses. That's what. Whatever. Okay.
Yeah,
I don't know what else to say. Righteous indignation from Chamblee, Georgia here. Now the truck silly season. Now we got some weird stuff the last couple weeks. Saw Josh Williams 2 weeks ago lose his colleague racing ride. Before that, Chris Wright left Our Motorsports and they went out of business. And then the trucks last week, Caden Honeycutt dropped by Nice Motorsports. The more you hear people talk about it, the more it seems like it was a Chevrolet decision after they invested in Honeycutt, and he informed them he was bolting for Toyota next year. Well, now we see Andres Perez de Lara leaving Spire Motorsports. He was in the 77 truck, the rookie from Mexico, who's struggled this year, to be fair. And he is taking the money with him, Telcel and whatnot, and going over to Nice Motorsports, and they're plugging him in the 44 truck that Bailey Curry and others had shared this year, Ross Chastain. They also have a cadre of other drivers that are going to drive the 45 that Honeycutt was driving, and that includes Bailey Curry. So it seems to me like Andres Perez didn't get fired. He saw an opportunity to jump ship and go to a team and get a restart, and he's doing that mid-season instead of waiting for 2026. Because of that loss of backing at Spire Motorsports, or I guess they could have decided to do this first, but it seems to me he was the one with the funding. He could have kept his ride. They are shutting down the 07 truck, and they're plugging Corey LaJoy, who is supposed to drive that, into the 77 for the rest of this season for 7 races to replace Delara. Now, why Corey LaJoy? Wait, I thought he left Spire. I thought they traded him over to Rick Ware, and he's running just part-time Cup this year. Well, LaJoy said this on stage to me at Echo Park Speedway. Because I asked him, well, what's the deal with the trucks? What do you still do with Rick Ware? And he's like, I'm still under contract with Spire, so I got to do what they say. They were paying him to not drive their cars. Now they can pay him to drive their cars. He's under contract, so he's finishing out the year at driving. And hopefully for his sake, he could raise his stock a little bit as he plans future forward. But, Devin, we've seen it again, another mid-season, silly season. What's going on? Are we starting to see this stuff happen more often? Is this going to set a new precedent? Because it had gotten real boring mid-season lately.
Yeah, it really has been, and a lot of the moves we've seen in the past, good while now. I mean, before the pandemic, have all been news that'll come out around this time, but it'll be for something for next year, but something to happen in season, and maybe potentially what we saw last year with Spire Motorsports and Rick Ware Racing with the Justin Haley and Corey LaJoy deal. I think that could have potentially opened up the door for all of this to start happening again. But it's just interesting. We've just seen a snowball effect really over the past couple of weeks, really, to see these just in-season moves just keep happening. Maybe that's the new norm, or we're going back to that now, that it's able to be done.
I haven't seen the And what's interesting too is the decision to shut down the 07 team that was 10th in owners points and had won this year versus the 77 team. So I'm guessing they're going to switch. There's no way they're going to shut down the 10th place owners point. They're just going to switch numbers or something, right? And keep the 77 because that's more their brand than the 07 is. In fact, I'm trying to remember who the 07 was that won, but I'm not going to try right now. So, Dan, what do you think about all this?
I think it's AI's way of making up some good stories for us to talk about before the season's over. Because Doug, Devin, I look at this of more. Yes, it goes beyond lateral moves, but it almost looks like lateral moves because in the scheme of things at this point in time, what is this going to do?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't change a lot. It is lateral for sure. And by the way, it was Kyle Larson that had won in the 07 truck at Homestead. That by the way, and that's been an all-star truck all year. Just to answer that question, but yeah, what does it do in the end? Does it? Will we even remember that it happened? Probably not. It's just there's been so much homeostasis, if you will, so much steady, steadiness, I guess, in mid-season, and then to see Josh Williams, Caden Honeycutt, Andres Perez, and some of that is impacted by the Stuart Friesen injury, right? I'm just surprised it doesn't wait for the offseason. In fact, usually they wait till late in the offseason to even announce any moves of who's coming back or staying in the two lower series. So that's that. By the way, Chris Wright, who left Our Motorsports or got fired, whatever happened there, he finished third of the ARCA race, and he's been the most mocked driver out of all three top NASCAR divisions this year. And he was able to pull out a top 5 finish. Another thing, too, on the ARCA side, Club Racing, the 03 car, and they raced some other ones as well, back marker cars, they had their hauler wreck completely a couple of weeks ago after a race, and they're intending on being in the Illinois race this weekend in ARCA, so they're back on the track. So good news to see that. So we've covered SVG and how much he has covered the field and some playoff implications of Watkins Glen. We talked about the Xfinity crap show on Saturday, Connor Zilich getting hurt, victory lane celebrations, Austin Hill do what? And we decided not to throw him down the hill this time again. I didn't mean to make that pun, but there it was. We talked about truck silly season, and we previewed Richmond, except we didn't talk about how drivers have done recently at Richmond. That probably should be the last way we end this thing because there's going to be a big impact here, and we're not expecting any wild card guys, right? Did I hear you say that right?
Yeah, I don't think we'll get a wild card winner from the Cup race this weekend.
You do not think that, Dan? Same.
I'm thinking we will.
Thinking we will get a wild card this weekend.
Yep, I'm thinking we will get a wild card.
A new winner at very least. Okay. Yep. All right, last 5 races at Richmond. All right, so that goes 22, 23, 24. No, I need to go 7 races. Hold on. Let me get the Google machine in the right shape here. Hold on. Is it last 7 races at Richmond, right? 2, 3, 4, 6 races. 6 races. Okay, let's go. Last 6 races. You can tell I did a lot of prep on this. The driver with the most points and has 2 wins. Anybody want to take a stab at that? Hamlin, correct. 5 top 5s, 2 wins in the 6 Gen 7 car races. Christopher Bell, Joey Logano, second and third in points in the Gen 7 era. Kyle Larson's won a race. He's 4th in points. The other driver that's part of that, Chris Buescher, he won a race. Then you got to go down. Austin Dillon won his, and was another one like Truex or something. I'm trying to find where that other race was. 2-1-1. No, I guess that's it. Okay. But, yeah, that's big time step there. One of those wins is missing. I'm trying to see who it is. Austin Dillon, Chris Buescher, Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin. That's 5. Well, I don't know. Maybe that's Martin Truex Jr. No, it's not him. I don't know who the 6th one was that won. But yeah, Chris Buescher, got to watch him. He won this race a couple years ago. He's in the thick of the playoff hunt. I would think Brad Keselowski is going to be an outside threat. He's 6th most points at Richmond there, and you never know what Ryan Preece could do. It's kind of hard to compare what he's done in the past versus now.
What's SVG's record? How many races has he run?
At Richmond?
Yes.
None. I don't think I don't see him on the list here, and it would make sense that last year he was entered just in different stuff. He did run his first truck race was at ORP, or is it Lucas Oil or O'Reilly's? Devin?
Lucas Oil.
It is Lucas Oil, excuse me. So Lucas Oil LORP, he ran that last year and finished. He got the top 15 or 20. It's like his first oval race in NASCAR 2 years ago, I guess it was 2 years ago. But no, he does not run. He has not run Richmond. I can see what he did in Xfinity. I'll have to look that up in just a second here. I could do that. Um, but yeah, that's the dichotomy with Van Gisbergen is so many road course wins. If he could even become similar level with ovals, he would really be in the talk. But people don't seem to catch on because they don't like it that he can't do the ovals.
That win at Charlotte is just a stepping stone for him to start winning at ovals. Then, hey, maybe he'll have a shot at New Hampshire.
Legends car.
Maybe he'll have a shot at New Hampshire next month because it's a similar track to what much bigger scale, but still flat.
Don't do that. Don't compare New Hampshire to the Charlotte quarter mile, please.
It's close.
But I like it. Hey, he raced 15th at Richmond. He raced 15th at Richmond in the Xfinity Series a year ago. There you go.
I would at least, if I were him, I would run over as many of those people that were giving me a hard time as I could.
On that note, our final thoughts. Five to go. I really didn't think we'd make an hour today, but we got there. Devin, you got any final thoughts before you hit the road for Richmond?
Yeah, it's going to be my first time in Richmond, Virginia. I haven't been by Richmond since like 2013 or 2014, so it's been a long time since I've been. Because we're just on our way through driving up to New York to go visit some family a long time ago.
Don't be like a friend of mine who was racing in Richmond, Virginia, but he ended up driving to Richmond, Kentucky, and couldn't find the racetrack.
I'm at the wrong track.
I'm at the wrong state.
Devin, go ahead. Sorry.
One fun fact here about Richmond Raceway. This is actually the first time since 1957 that Richmond is not hosting 2 Cup races.
That's true. That's a great point. Yeah, it's down to 1, and some people think it could even be less. That race got moved to Mexico City.
I wonder how
now it's going to be in San Diego.
With the current state of short track racing and what we've seen from Richmond Raceway, how do you promote this race? That's what I'm wondering. I know it's down to 1 date, so it might help attendance, but how do they get the people in the seats and the viewer to watch at home to watch this race?
It's the only one. That's what I would be saying. It's the only one, and tires actually fall off here. That's what I would say. It's the only one, and there's tire fall off, playoffs on the line. That's what I would say for Cup and trucks. But what do I know? Dan's promoted races forever with all the biggest things and having even NASCAR regional series at the track. And sometimes people don't want to come. They don't want to come. I will say it not coinciding with college football like it would in September or the NFL or something like that. It being its own thing into the summer seems like it's not on Easter. Seems like a good spot to me. Who knows? Dan, your final thought.
Yeah, but Richmond is one of those unique racetracks where it has it's in its own area, and it draws a lot of loyal fans to that racetrack. Went there a long time, and it has a major drawing, and I love that racetrack. I like the old racetrack better, but I still like this racetrack because it is of the short tracks, but you don't think of it as a short track.
Of the short tracks, but you don't think of it as one. That's an interesting day. I definitely do. Richmond used to be the most exciting track on the circuit there, and it wasn't the Gen 7 car. Just over time, the refinement of the drivers, the lower horsepower in the cars, maybe over time, that goes back way longer than the Gen 7 car. It just hasn't. It hasn't produced that. It's produced a lot of people getting into a rhythm and staying single file, and not a lot of multi-groove racing there. So I'm hoping that we'll see something Saturday instead of somebody running away like we saw, say, at Iowa a couple weeks ago. Dan?
And it was the first place that I ever met Big Billy. And the old
Big
Richmond
Bill France, you mean?
Nope, Big Billy. Nope, he was just a fan. But he would always stand at the gate because there was only one way across the track, and that was to cross the racetrack as it came out of what was turn 4 to the start-finish line. And Big Billy would stand there and wait for drivers to come by. And if he didn't get an autograph from you, the driver, he would put a hex on you where you wouldn't win the race.
A hex?
He would put a hex on you because Neil Bonnet was scared to death of him and avoided him at all costs.
It could have just signed his autograph.
Could have just signed his autograph, but he didn't.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay, I don't know about that.
I
don't know about that. I think I would have just signed the autograph. Just sign the autograph. Okay.
If you didn't sign the autograph book for him, you got hexed.
Godspeed to Big Billy. Hope we see you in church, big boy.
It was probably the high temperature of 30 degrees, and he was always in khaki shorts and a T-shirt.
I'm disappointed it wasn't jorts.
Hey.
I'm disappointed.
It
Khakis.
was
Give me
it
the
was
jorts, Billy.
it was the era there, Doug. It was the era.
Oh man, yeah. Devin knows all about eras and auras, doesn't he? All right, all that Gen Z talk. Yeah. Hey, my final thought is I'm just sick of all the hate, guys. And I'm not. I know I went off a while ago, a couple weeks ago, about the Bubba Wallace thing, and people just actually discriminately, but just going off no matter what, hating it. No, I mean just look, things aren't great, sure, on the Cup side as far as the racing product. But listen to yourselves. You are prisoners of the moment, and stop acting like the racing from 20 years ago was so much doggone better. There were stinkers then, too. People led 150 laps and sometimes even won by 10 seconds back in your favorite era of racing, whether it was Ned Jarrett winning the Southern 500 by 12 laps 50 years, 60 years ago, or whether it was, 70 was too much, or whether it was somebody 2 weeks ago doing it. There's no doubt that there's a problem. I hope NASCAR is not deaf to there being a problem and actually jumps in, and it seems like they listen more now than they ever have. But I am tired of being a prisoner of the moment, all right? You complained when Jimmy Johnson won 5 championships in a row, and now you're saying those cars are great. Stop.
Just remember, people tend to remember the good but forget the bad.
That's correct. All right, there were plenty of stinkers. I had a conversation at work, my last thing here. Conversation at work with somebody today talking about just this, and I got riled up just like I did right then. And I said, here is the dirty secret about motorsports. Most of the time, entertainment-wise, it sucks, okay? Let's just be real. Most of the time, now it could be 51%, it could be 79%, it could be 90%. You sit through the long stretches, just like in baseball, where it's pitch out, pitch out, pitch out. Football, 3 and out, 3 and out. Only 2 first downs that drive. Nobody scored. You sit through all of that to hit those big moments. And in motorsports, you'll have a whole race that may not have that big moment except the checkered flag and a restart. But there are a lot of times where we have some darn good moments. And we need some more of them this summer. I agree. Calm down, everybody.
Thank you, Austin.
To which, yeah, exactly. Thank you, Austin Hill. Yes, Austin Hill. You know what? It's not hot girl summer. It's Austin Hill summer. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, name of the show, Austin Hill Summer. Did SVG do anything in Watkins Glen? No, it's Austin Hill Summer. Hey, you could like our all the things, Apple, Spotify, subscribe, share, mail a carrier pigeon in a box, still living with holes in the top that has our podcast attached to it. I don't know, but we would love for you to be a part of it. Interact with us there. Respond right here like Kenny Wallace says. Next week, Devin's going to have the full download from Richmond. He'll be there. We'll be back with 5 to go sometime midweek. But thank you for listening to episode 326. For Devin Kupka, the Road Warrior, Dan Elliott, the Gear Warrior, I'm your Word Warrior, Doug Turnbull, who talks too much. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you right here on the 5 to Go podcast. God bless.